Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight for our last Monday night session of Mod 3 here in DES109. Melissa Kinney here, your instructor, and this is live session 1 of week 4. We're just kind of wrapping things up now this week, and we're going to do some critiques today. We'll go over the week's objectives, do a little overview. And then tomorrow we will get going on the demonstration and talk a little bit about the assessment that we're working on. So let's get going. So like I just mentioned, we're in week 4. So we did week 1 where we talked about what design was. We talked a little bit about the design principles and how Gestalt theory works. We kind of dove into design history a little bit. Week 2, we brought in the design elements and how they work with the principles. We had that great discussion of the menu design. We did an advertising makeover where we started kind of working with a little bit of type and a little bit of imagery, trying to see how we could get the two to work together. And we critiqued ourselves in trying to kind of justify our reasoning and our design decisions and whether or not we thought that those decisions made sense, if they worked. Last week, we kind of built upon that where we were starting our poster and we created a mood board to go along with that. And we kind of did like our little brainstorming session with that. We also were discussing different ways to listen to my dog apparently, different ways to find creativity and inspiration, different avenues, different media. And then in our assessment, we worked with some photos for our social media banner ads. And then this week, is the future of design. We talked about the past pretty much in the last 3 weeks. So now we're going to be focusing on the future, not only the future of design in general, but also your future of design, your future in design. And in the discussion, we're talking a little bit about your online design presence and how important it is and why it's important. It's very easy to kind of shy away from that and to feel very self-conscious. So we're talking about how we can kind of, step over that boundary, that obstacle, and put ourselves out there. And then for our assignment and assessment this week, they're two very fairly intertwined projects. Our assessment, we're going to kind of work backwards. The assessment is actually going to be your poster from last week, not the mood board, just the poster. You're going to take those revisions that I'll be making in your grades for the poster, and you'll apply those revisions to create a stronger piece. And then for your assignment for this week, you'll be creating your Behance online portfolio. And then your revised poster, you'll be uploading that as your first project. So they're kind of, like I said, they're kind of intertwined. And it definitely is easier to kind of do the revisions first and then work on the assignment. So kind of, like I said, working backwards, assessment first, then assignment. If you have created your online portfolio first and you haven't done the revisions yet, it's not a big deal. The first part's just not completely done yet. You have to wait until you make the revisions to upload that other portion. So that's what we're going to be up to this week. Just another reminder, I think I've only reminded you guys like once of this because it's, I don't want to do it every single week, but just for a reminder to make sure that you watch the pre-recorded lecture number 1 on Online Portfolio 101. And we're talking about building your network as well, because these videos are super important, as are these concepts in your program. And that's awesome, Devin. So you are pretty much halfway there already. So maybe you'll take a look at your portfolio and make some additions or modifications or whatever. So week 3, grades in late work, just to kind of do a little housekeeping right now. The late submissions for assessment, or excuse me, for the assignment from last week, I'll take those up until Thursday at like noontime, because you kind of need to make sure that you have that done in order to complete this week's assessment, because it's, you know, it's based on week 3. So if you have not submitted yours yet, please make sure to get it in ASAP, because then I do need to make sure that I grade it for you in enough time. You know, last mod I had someone submit their assignment like noontime on Saturday, and you know, I still accepted it and I still graded it, but then they only had a couple of hours to do the revisions, and they had to kind of be watching for it. So whether or not that particular student was able to get everything done, I don't even remember. But you know, it kind of leaves you in a crunch. So we'll be doing critiques today. If we have time, we'll do some more Tuesday. And if anybody wants extra critiques, I'll do some on Thursday. So far, I haven't had anybody ask specifically to come in. But you know, if for some reason you want that, that's no problem. Stop in, or you can shoot me a message to remind me. And then when I sit down to make my contacts that day and work on my grading and everything, I'll see that, and I will make sure I do it. I know I did at least a couple last mod in the last week. So, and assessment number 3, if you have not passed in those social media banner ads, I will accept them. Excuse me, my goodness. I will accept them up until the end of the mod, which is this coming Saturday. They'll just have a late deduction. The assignment and assessment number 4, I cannot take any later than Saturday, because that's the end of the mod, obviously. So just make sure you get everything by that, get everything into me by that day. And I will obviously try to have those grades in a timely manner. This mod has kind of kicked my butt in terms of getting everything in quickly, but that's all right. So week 4, excuse me, my goodness, the grasses and trees are starting to come out here in New England. So we have our week 4 learning objectives. We are, oops, this is not right, there we go. We are utilizing graphic design tool sets to edit and compose graphics for professional portfolio presentation, which we are essentially learning how to create a portfolio that is professional, that is interesting, that is unique, etc., etc. We are, oh, I keep shutting my video off by accident. We are discussing in our discussion the importance of maintaining a professional graphic design presence. So like I mentioned, we're going to be discussing, we're in another pretend scenario where we have a colleague that is kind of shy, is not comfortable putting their stuff out there. So we are discussing the importance of making sure that we get our work out there and put ourselves out there, and you know, just the benefits of it all. And hello, Heather. Heather has now joined us. We have, actually, I don't even think I mentioned it, but we have Heather, Devin, and Amber tonight. Next, we'll be interpreting and applying constructive feedback to revise a professional print design piece. This applies to our poster from last week, where we will be making those revisions and then you know, polishing off that piece so that we can show it to the world, making sure that we're putting our best foot forward. So, but wait, we have one of our last 2 seeker questions. We're doing this early today because we've only been on for about 10 minutes. What is this? For my 3 students that are in here tonight, do any of you guys know what this is? This is our secret question. And I'm curious to know if any of you know. And Amber, if you watched last mod, you can't say anything. I didn't have time to change this particular question. Any ideas? Oh, Heather says she had one, but she can't remember. These kind of went the way of the daughter. Oh, Devin says he remembers, but can't remember what the name is. These are popples. These are, for those of you youngins, these were from around the 80s. this little guy is mine. I still actually have him. He's like the one toy in the house that my kids are not allowed to play with because the tail is like coming off. So the thing's like 30-something years old. And it's not in good enough condition that anybody would want to buy it from me, that it has any value, but it's kind of a fun toy. So moving right along to actual design information. Week 4 in our classroom, we are going to go over the media very briefly. Like I just typically point out what you guys are going to be learning in there. We'll go over the discussion hopefully today so that tomorrow I can focus more on the demo like I try to do it. Assignment number 4 is our Behance setup, where the demo will be tomorrow, and then we'll also talk about the assessment slightly tomorrow as well. That is the revisions. And then our career integration quiz, I will actually go over in just a minute because I do want to make sure that I just talk a little bit about that. There isn't a ton to say about it really, but I do want to make sure I mention. Yes, they did turn into pillow pets, and you know what, Devin? It totally does repeat itself because not too long ago they came out with another Popple cartoon that my kids were even watching, but those Popples weren't anywhere near as cool looking as the ones that we had way back when. You didn't need to watch the last mod ever. Yeah. I find actually quite a few people actually know what that is, which is just very funny. So quite a few of my students actually know without looking. So today we're talking a little bit about being a designer, working a designer, your future in the design industry. Before we actually kind of jump into it, you guys are, in the beginning stages of your design education, whether you are only in your first couple of classes, or maybe you've been in quite a few classes, but you're maybe kind of starting to get yourself out there, do a little bit of work for people that you know. And you'll probably start kind of thinking to yourself, am I enjoying what I'm doing? Am I approaching this field because I really enjoy art and creation, or was I joining this field because the job kind of seemed interesting to me, and that's it? And either or is absolutely 100% okay and acceptable. It's just good to kind of take into account what your position is. Whoops, goodness, I accidentally hit the wrong thing. Are you an artist, and that's what you see, throughout your entire day? You're looking at menus, you're looking at the signs on buses, you're looking at billboards, and you're thinking to yourself, I can't imagine, or I can't even mention how often it's awful, but I'll go to people's weddings, and in my mind, I'm critiquing the programs or the invitations or the seating cards, and it's awful because sometimes it totally detracts from me enjoying the event. There are plenty of people out there, and I know lots of them that's not really who they are. They love their design job, but they are able to go home and shut it off. And that's, they are able to work their 9 to 5 and really love their work, their positions, their projects. But it's not all consuming for them, and they love it just as much as I love being kind of absorbed in it as well. I've done several of the jobs, and it just wasn't for me. So either way, whether it's who you are or whether it is your job, you need the same things. You need technical skills. You need to be able to navigate Photoshop, navigate Illustrator, InDesign. If you are going more towards a web based job, you might end up needing to work in Adobe XD, which is a wireframing software. Maybe even Dreamweaver. There are lots of other different programs out there that you might end up needing to work in. You're going to need design skills. That's where your contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity foundation education is going to start coming into play, because You know, you want to make sure that everything is aesthetic, everything balances, everything is readable. And in addition to that, talking about readable, you're going to need to make sure that you have interpersonal and communication skills. I just, in one of my last classes, I just finished an actual class on communication, which I thought was very silly until I started working with an IT guy in the last month, and he has a very difficult time communicating. So it obviously, there's a reason why that's part of the degree that I'm going for. Being able to not only communicate like we did in the assessment in week 2, to communicate to people what your design abilities are, what your design reasonings are, what your design process is. You also need to kind of be able to translate what the individual is looking for their own design needs. Devin has a quick question before we continue. Let's see. You coin my name as Devin in all social media platforms and upload designs to various pages. Should I change my name or websites to be custom? Only found one Christ logo design out in Italy. Are you talking about like a handle, or you know what, let me even, before I even continue, I can bring something up, like I can actually point it out, so it might be a little bit easier for me to ask my question. So Devin, are you talking about like up here where I kind of, I mean, that's not really a handle. I obviously have my name up here. This is a custom URL, but are you talking about like putting your Devin with the 3 right in here, or is it something different that you're talking about? And if you need to put on the microphone to explain it, you can, if that's a little bit easier. I don't have a problem with that. Whatever works.
Yeah, so I was thinking about, like, you know, having a www whatever it is /D3VIN, or should I change the name into like something else that's more cohesive for like future employment? You know, like most employers, they're not going to look at D3VIN, but if I change it to DEVIN, to my actual name, then they might be more apt to check that out.
So you're talking like to keep it maybe more quote unquote professional? Is that maybe kind of what you're going for? You want to make sure that they can find you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's where I'm while I'm watching your stream and everything, it's like, yeah, there has to be some kind of cohesive way where they can find me, so it's easy. You know, I could print it up on like a business card or whatever, you know, or just tell them, you know, www. / and then give them the straight up name and everything, and they can figure it out. Well, either they figure it out or they can't, but
you know, this actually might be a good question to maybe kind of put out there to some of your classmates, colleagues, maybe even friends and family, to kind of get an idea of what they think, since there would be kind of like the audience that you'd be that would be trying to find you. I could see pros and cons, but like I bet benefits and disadvantages to doing that, because you know, one benefit obviously would be people might be looking specifically for DEVIN, and then when they can't find you, get frustrated or not know where else to look. But at the same time, keeping it with the D3VIN might actually stand out in their mind. So you kind of have like that unique persona. You said you already have a Behance site. Do you know what the URL is?
Yeah, I started it up. Let me go to this other window.
Because we can even take a look at that real quick before we do anything.
Let's see if I could pull it up real quick.
Sure. And we have actually, while you're looking at that, Heather is actually mentioning in the chat, she thinks that because you're already using that with your work, you should probably stick with it. And she thinks that, you know, it's pretty unique. That might actually help you stand out. So we have one opinion there for you already. So like you'll, well, not that you would end up noticing this, but it, you know, my work, my business is Purple Spider Graphics, so that's why I have my URL as PSG, Purple Spider Graphics. 14 is my number just from forever. So a lot of my stuff is kind of like that. I have Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn and all that other jazz, and they're all kind of linked up to that kind of pattern. Amber says, correct, right, and as a designer, people are going to expect funky names. So that's another opinion for you. So both of them think that you stick with it. We were able to find it there?
How did you come up with the, well, I understand like you're afraid of spiders and everything, but how did you come up with your URL?
That is one of the things I'm actually going to show you guys tomorrow. There is a setting in Behance that you can actually customize it. So it's always, you know, behance.net, but then with the slash right after it, you can actually choose as opposed to having it automatically generated for you. So that's one thing I always make sure to point out to my students when I do the demo, because it's kind of a neat thing to be able to do to very easily describe to people. Let me actually see if I can I'll even do it real quick if I can remember my password right off the top of my head, and then I'll just do it again tomorrow. Let me see. Oh, look at that. First try.
Yeah, I checked out mine and it was corn dog. Fair food, you know, like you get those really good corn dogs.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to change that. But yeah, I'm gonna mute myself and I'm gonna tune in and
Let me see.
oh, this is awesome.
You said corn dog? That's what it is?
Something like that.
Oh, wait a minute. We got someone else here. But you see how it was so easy for me to be able to type that in. So what you can do is once you go to your little avatar up here, you can go to settings.
Okay.
It asks for your password again because, you know, I didn't just sign in like 30 seconds ago. And right in here in the account information where it says Behance URL, you hit edit and boom, you can just pick whatever it is that you'd like. As long as it's not already taken, you literally can, you can put your regular name, you can put something that's, you know, a little bit more out there like corn dog. But, you know, for example, you could very easily, oh, whoa, see, look at that. Wait a minute. The URL already exists. Maybe that's you already.
Maybe it is.
Oh, hey, look at that. So, you know, very easy to remember, you know, so it's just one of those unique things that might help you to kind of stand out a little bit. So there we go.
I'm going to mute myself and I'm going to sit back in the seat and continue, please. Like, you're teaching me so much.
Great. Well, awesome. I'm really glad to hear that. Thank you very much for that feedback. But all right, so now we had, this is why I love it when all you guys come into my classes, because it really is just so much more interesting than me just jabbering on by myself. I love being able to see the chat and answer the questions, and you know, it ends up kind of going on different tangents sometimes, but they're always related, and a lot of them bring up really awesome conversations. So I really enjoy that. So we're going to circle the wagon, come right back down to being a designer and working as a designer. And we obviously just saw one of our students' Behance portfolios. We kind of were looking at a couple of those settings and stuff like that, and we'll go into more in depth tomorrow. And then this week also, like I said, we're talking about the digital world. We have our industry has gone in such a very quick manner, has gone from mainly print to this huge, vast universe of the digital age. You know, there's just so much out there. I mean, even billboards these days are becoming digital, so they can be changed more easily. They can have space sold so much quicker. Newspapers are almost becoming a thing of the past. You know, and there are lots of pros and lots of cons to that. Any of you guys think of any pros or cons? Let's start with pros. Benefits to the design industry becoming more digital. What can you guys come up with in terms of benefits of that having? Actually, Devin just came up with a con. Billboards being hacked. That is definitely something. I've never seen it, but I 100% believe that there have got to be instances where people have done that. I would think it would be probably pretty hysterical to see some of that stuff, as long as it's not, featuring me. But we have, the security is just one more thing you have to end up worrying about, obviously. We have jobs that probably have kind of they've gone the way of the dodo, because, you don't need as many printing presses anymore. You don't need as many people doing pre-press. You don't need the machinery anymore. Heather says that she feels sometimes that billboards like that, digital things, they're very distracting. I 100% agree with you, Heather. My husband and I went out to eat a couple weeks ago, and they had like 12 TVs going on at the same time. And my husband and I don't go out very often, and when we do, we actually like to enjoy each other's company. I had a very hard time focusing on him. And it's not that he's boring by any means, but things like that. And that's essentially what a television is. They get the flashing commercials. You have things scrolling along the bottom of the screen. It can be very, very distracting. Pros, the likelihood of someone catching your message is so much higher. It's crazy. It's fast, it's convenient, it is easy access. I know I see television screens that aren't really, they don't have shows or games or anything going on there. They don't even have, my God, I am having a hard time today, broadcasting commercials or anything. They just have ad space. So it's even a money generator. You have people saying, hey, this is our community. You're paying money to have your child come into our business. We want to allow you the opportunity to advertise your business. So if you pay us X amount of dollars, we'll flash your business card on this screen while people are watching their kid do their karate lesson or do their dance class or whatever. So it's a moneymaker in that aspect. And someone needs to put those designs together, obviously. The digital world, the print world, when I first started in this industry, you would bring a print portfolio with you, which was aggravating as anything. Now you have Behance, where you can give someone your URL and they can look you up really quickly. Social media is everywhere, obviously. It's very, very easy to find someone or a business on there. And at the same time, it's very easy for you to get your name out there. And YouTube, God, I can't even imagine the number of videos that are on that thing anymore. I mean, it's just crazy. And I never thought, even myself, never thought that I would have a YouTube channel until I started teaching. Excuse me. And granted, the only things that are up there are these lectures, but it's up there, it's convenient, and, you guys can watch them whenever you want, obviously. So it is a very vast, convenient, but also very distracting, like Heather says, kind of world. So it's sometimes in 2019, it can be very difficult to find that balance too, where you step away from the screen and kind of put yourself back into the real world, back into life. So we are going to get going on some critiques. And actually, I got to close out this poster that I was attempting to print, but apparently my printer is out of some of my ink. So my gray shirt became orange. So let us open up the submissions that I have for today. I think I will start off with a couple. 1, 2, 3. And I'm actually just going to actually, oh, you know what? Actually, before we even do that, I'm sorry. I'm going to actually back up a little bit because I have not gone through, there we go. I have not gone through our other information. So we're going to back up. We're going to take my slide and back up. There we go. So I don't forget. We're going to go through the announcements and the media real quick for week 4. Let's see, today is the 8th. And yesterday was the 7th. So we have the, oh, actually, I do want to make sure that I pointed this out because I posted this last week for the artboards in Photoshop. For any of you that were having trouble, hopefully you found that because it does seem to be kind of a tricky portion of the assignment, week 3. And if you have not gotten to that point yet, or if you're still having trouble after looking at these things, please let me know because sometimes I can just point you in the right direction and it's a little bit easier. Excuse me, there we go. This was just kind of a fun one that I happened to see on Facebook that I just thought was hysterical. So you guys can reread that later because it's not important. It was just funny. And we have our schedule for Wanda Bryant, our class coach for this week right here. In the event that you need to talk with someone and I am not available, okay? And that is it for the time being. Okay, our homepage announcements. I cannot stand the fact that these things don't load. Live sessions readings, because it always takes me a minute. See, and you know what? This is actually a great example of design. Let me even back up. I can find this media link so much easier when the thumbnails actually load, but because it's an image. But because I'm trying to sort through all the text here, it's a little bit more difficult to find. So this is a great example of, we were working on the social media ads last week. The image is going to catch your attention much, much faster than the message is. So look at that. That was the first time I even thought about that too. So going down to week 4, we have the pre-recorded lecture talking about the graphic design process and your online portfolio, building your network, why that is so important, actually putting yourself out there. Our lynda.com playlist actually has a little bit of information on creating your Behance account and your profile as well as having to navigate through it. And I will be going through this tomorrow, but it might be beneficial to watch through it real quickly before it. I mean, like I said, so we got 3, 6, 9, 12, 18, 20. I mean, there's maybe a half an hour worth of videos there for just for Behance. It's really not that long. And then the rest of the playlist, which is talking specifically about your portfolio and social media, not necessarily about creating the Behance portfolio. But these are only a few minutes long too. So it's really easy. And then just a couple of, actually it was just the one article, I'm sorry, on creating a nice design portfolio. We'll talk a little bit tomorrow too as well about, trying to make your portfolio the best that you can and memorable, which is obviously a very important thing as well. And let me actually, just want to go over here real quick. Okay, yeah. Just checking over here. Let's go down to the discussions. And we have our week 4 discussion, developing your design presence. So as I've already mentioned several times, but the online portfolio is really, there are so many different benefits to having one. And these days it's kind of like an industry standard. I do occasionally have people ask me for a paper portfolio. And when that happens, I kind of scratch my head and go, what? Because it's so out there these days. But the market is really, there's so many of us too, that it's really kind of flooded. So trying to figure out a way to have yourself stand out from everyone else, it can be very, very tricky. And that's one of the other things that we'll talk about tomorrow when we're working on the demonstration. So there are several things that you want to kind of consider when we're talking about why your online presence is so important. So you first, number one, want to stand out from the crowd. Obviously, try to figure out what you can bring to the table that no one else can. Whether it is, for example, like Devin was talking about a little bit earlier, maybe a unique handle to kind of set you apart from everybody else. Maybe you have a particular style of art that really no one else can emulate. Or maybe it's your clientele. Maybe you actually have some clientele already that you can feature the work that you do for them. You know, maybe you do a lot of nonprofit work, or maybe you do, I don't know, maybe you have some professional athlete clients that you can maybe feature the work that you've done with them. So there's very much a lot of different ways that you could make yourself stand out. Maybe you're going to try to take a completely minimalist approach on your portfolio, and because that is definitely a thing that some people do too, and it really makes you stand out. And I really need to find the resume that got submitted to me several years ago, because I remember it still. It was a black resume and the type was white. And instead of just listing out in bullet points the software that he was proficient in, he actually had icons for the individual software packages. And I mean, I think this was over 6 or 7 years ago at this point, and I still remember this resume, and I could probably still find it if I looked for it. But you know, that's the kind of thing you want to try to do. And all he did was laid his resume out a little different. Heather says, such an overwhelming thought. What exactly is overwhelming? How the market is flooded, or is it something else that was overwhelming? Devin says the black resume would stand out to you too. And Heather, it is an overwhelming thought, but the nice thing is that you guys, part of your education is teaching you guys how to get yourselves out there. I kind of had to learn how to do this on my own because it wasn't a thing when I graduated, which makes me sound ancient. But I promise I'm not. The technology kind of happened so fast when I was in my undergrad. To kind of give you an example, I was in my undergrad when zip disks were kind of coming into the field and then very swiftly getting kicked back out because flash drives decided to show up. I mean, it happened so fast that by the time I graduated and started looking for work, there was a lot going on. The internet had really kind of blown up at that point, as did social media, Facebook and Twitter. MySpace at that point was still actually a thing for non-musicians. But it is an industry that just moves so very fast that it can be very overwhelming. That's why we all have to stick together. I find designers have a tendency to help each other out as opposed to competing with each other. You know, once you kind of get a niche and you've established some colleagues, you've established a network, you find someone that is really good at something that maybe you don't feel is your strength. You maybe pass some work to them, or they would maybe pass it to you. It brings in, the field definitely brings in a certain type of person, a certain type of coworker and colleague. So despite the fact that it does maybe seem overwhelming right now, you guys are actually kind of being integrated into that portion of the industry where it's just going to be kind of second nature to you by the time you've got your degree, where you're going to know how to navigate it. You're going to know how to work with others in order to get yourself out there. And that's why we do things like this for you. This is why we walk through how to do the portfolio and provide you guys with the feedback. And like I have said, I don't know how many times since I've started teaching, but even in this class, I'm still learning. It's a really an awesome thing. I learn from you guys. I learn from previous students. I know I'll learn from future students as well. So it's an ongoing thing. So don't get freaked out on my little tangent there. So we want to stand out from the crowd. You want to position yourself as an expert, even though you may not feel like you are. It is, pick something that you have, you know are your strengths, and show potential clients and potential employers, you know what you're doing. Even if you don't feel like you do, because a lot of the time you can figure it out as you go. And it's, they want you to be confident in what you're doing. They want to be confident in what you are doing. Show professional commitment and set expectations. By setting up your portfolio ahead of time, you're showing your future clients and your future employers that, yeah, I'm here for the long haul. I'm a professional. I have this already set up. I have already put in X amount of hours to kind of ground myself in this industry. And by doing that, you're actually setting your clients' expectations in you to know that you are going to be a hard worker. You're going to do your research for them, and you're going to be providing them with what they want. And then throughout all this, and like we were just talking a minute ago, in terms of, not feeling overwhelmed, you're going to end up building connections. I have customers that I maybe haven't done work with in a long time, but every once in a while they come out of the blue and they're like, hey, by the way, I need this work done. I haven't maybe talked to them in 10 years, but they kept me in mind. They've passed my name on to other people. And it's, as you're working, as you're growing, you're going to be building your network. So the discussion for this particular week, we are talking with other designers, other colleagues, and this particular colleague is not comfortable sharing their work because they're just not comfortable. They're not confident maybe. And as a result, they don't have anything out there. So what you're going to be talking about to them is, why is the online presence so important here in 2019? And what might you use to tell them, to try to convince them that, it's so important, you need to get one, and this is why. How would you describe the world, the professional design world today, and how those online presences, how the online presence, there we go, is used? And how could you actually make them more comfortable? That's really a big portion too, is trying to get people comfortable and confident in their self and in their own work. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I always love hearing the different things that people come up with on that as well. So gonna go back forward. We have the critiques that we're going to work on. Okay. And Devin says you like to collaborate also. I don't have the chance very much, so I'm glad that you do, because that's, I've been self-employed for a very long time with my, whoops, that's not what I want. That's one of my own pieces. There we go. And when you are self-employed for a long time, you obviously don't work with a lot of designers. But I mean, I do work right now as the only artist in a particular screen print shop, but I'm collaborating with salespeople and production managers, but that's kind of it. So I'm glad you have the opportunity to. I miss being able to. So we have three. Oh, we don't have a lot of time today, so I'll probably only get to two, and then I'll actually keep the third one up, and we'll try to do that tomorrow so that I'm not leaving you guys lacking in critique. We have our first mood board today, our first mood board and poster. We can see the poster right down there. This student did Lester Beale. Did a very nice job picking out some appropriate colors. He did a lot of red, white, and blue for good old US of A. Some yellows. We have this kind of like golden, it's not even a yellow, it's like a golden, but he did use a lot of yellow as well. He had a tendency to very much enjoy splitting up canvases. We see it right here. We see it right over here. Almost looks like a little horizon line, if you can kind of see that. In some of them, these images aren't really a good example, but that almost, there were some that kind of look like a sky and a ground, some that look like, actually maybe I guess this is a good example. This one kind of looks like the floor. I'm sorry, the gold looks like the floor, and then this almost looks like the wall. It kind of inadvertently creates some depth in these pieces. He also loves using diagonals, like these really dynamic kind of lines. Also, he uses arrows. We have one arrow right here. We have these are, let me actually zoom in a little bit. I know for a fact that those are arrows. There we go. And a lot of the time, these arrows and diagonals kind of indicate movement. There we go. So like obviously this one's going, woo, it's talking about the running water. This one, not really sure exactly what it was supposed to be indicating. Maybe, actually, it looks like there was some kind of correlation between, you know, the Nazi regime and the Lady Liberty here. Not necessarily some, you know, so much motion, unless he was looking to kind of have this be like a shooting star kind of thing. But we have some more diagonals right here, where we have the flags. Oh, not the flags, the stripes from the flag. He also actually had a tendency to use a lot of black and white imagery. A lot of the imagery has a tendency to be either industrial, maybe middle class, working class kind of people in the home, using appliances. We have again industrial over here. You know, good old farm folk over here, and he incorporates those in. And when he doesn't use those, he very often uses these kind of silhouette kind of imagery. All right, so now we have, actually, let me even go back here. I'm sorry, I did not mention the text example. So that the font that was chosen here probably wasn't really indicative. He does use a lot of sans serif fonts, and then this other one that almost looks like something you might see on like an athletic jersey, maybe, or right down here, this is kind of like stencil, like dog tag kind of fonts. So those are, and it almost looks like we have Electrification Administration, and he also has that over here as well. So I don't know if that was maybe their logo, or if he just maybe did lots of posters for them. Could be either. All right, so one of those fonts probably would be a little bit more appropriate for his particular work, but this individual obviously was able to pinpoint that Beale used a lot of the red, white, and blue, had the gold. We have the list of artists right over here. We could probably use a little bit more contrast in our type here. Maybe since we're trying to advertise the artists, maybe make the names a little bit bigger, and probably push them over just a little bit. The fact that it is within this white space and it's left justified totally makes sense. Well, we could probably even, where's my tool? Here's my tool. There we go. Probably even enlarge them so that they kind of fill up the space. And actually that's a little bit too much, because I did say we wanted to maybe move them over. Give them a little bit of space. And then maybe the date in the name of the museum could maybe be down here a little bit. Or actually, let me get out of my annotation tool here. Clear, clear, clear. There we go. So I can scroll down. Maybe they actually would even want to use these these circles or within the lines here. Keep the website information maybe a little bit smaller and kind of put that in the white of the lines. That might actually work well. Another thing to maybe think about for this particular one would be throwing in some imagery. For Discovering Design in America, we're doing an art exhibit about design in America. So something American, maybe something design related, something art related. You know, he used, like I said, he used a lot of black and white imagery. Take a photograph that we think kind of fits one of those categories and see what we can come up with there. You know, maybe instead of a couple of farmers, maybe this is an easel with a painter, or maybe we go the silhouette route instead, and instead of a spigot, we have a computer with some drafting tools. I don't know. So that's where a lot of the stock sites actually come in handy. You can try to see what's available and use those as a springboard. We have a comment over here from Devin. Must say for my discussion, like posts, lines can be the key to open a door. Yes, they can be. They absolutely can. And it kind of gets hard to, what is it, Devin, that gets a little bit difficult? What is it you're referencing? Sometimes I wish I got a little notification every time a comment came in, because I know that sometimes by the time I see the message, I've already kind of skipped over what it was in reference to. Do you remember by any chance what you're commenting? The alignment. Yes. Were you talking specifically of something up here? The alignment. I'm just not sure I understand. So I'll tell you what, I'll keep my eye on the chat here. I'll move on to the next one, but I'll keep my eye on it for when your response comes up, because I don't want to. No, it's you don't have to apologize. It's absolutely fine, and it's difficult when you're writing in chat too sometimes to get the words across. So we'll just move on. I will absolutely agree that sometimes alignment can get very difficult, especially when you don't have enough letters or enough words, or the imagery is not right. It can definitely be tricky. Well, you know what, for example, let me actually even show you something real quick. The thing that I was just working on real quickly today. Whoops. It's just a very, very basic flyer. It's for my kids' karate studio. My husband works over there, and he had put together this image for t-shirts in Publisher or something, and he had just kind of thrown some stuff together. And I said, you know, do I have to use those images, or can I download some other silhouettes? He said, no, that's fine. You can download some other ones. And I put something together, and it didn't look right. And he and I looked at it for a few minutes and said, nope, I need to do this. I need to do this. And the way that these guys were kicking, it was totally throwing me off. So I absolutely understand what you're talking about with difficulty with alignment. And when you only have so many letters, when you're only given so much, sometimes getting them to work can be tricky, which Bass over here probably was dealing with that same kind of thing. He has the man with the golden arm. And I'm willing to bet he made this jagged to fit that text in there. The Saul Bass used a lot more flat imagery, a lot of silhouette kind of things. And actually this right here is very atypical of a lot of his work. Most of his work is a lot more angular. Excuse me, like this one right here. You know, we have this organic shape. It's a hand, so it's going to have more curves in it, but he's managed to turn it into something blocky. He does use a lot of reds, oranges, yellows, yes, amber, very geometric, very sharp angles too. You know, it's not flowy. We don't actually have any text samples here. We don't have the name. I just happen to know that this is a Saul Bass. And his fonts are very much, I mean, even though the G and the O, these are very rounded, but they all have a very jagged kind of look to them too. We don't have one baseline. You know, nothing's kind of lined up. The E is coming down a little bit. Even the 2 feet of the H are not quite on the same plane there, as you can see. So this individual kind of did something very similar with the hand. I would probably even recommend doing maybe or working a little bit more with that. You know, are we going to use a hand because the hand maybe is on a mouse where you're doing your graphic design work? Is it holding a brush? Is it holding a map of the United States? Is he pointing to a map of the United States? Who knows? The script, I don't think, is probably real typical. He does a lot, like I said, he does a lot of this kind of jagged kind of type. He does use a lot of sans serif fonts as well, some basic ones. Yes, you're right, Amber. The hand does absolutely, but maybe that's what the hand should be doing. Should actually be pointing up, because it does absolutely draw your eye up towards the information to the exhibit. So there's something that could work. We do have some nice blocks of color here. Where's my tool again? I hate the fact that I have to keep shutting it off. Oh, and I'm already running over again. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I hate that. Come on, there we go. So we have, you know, this nice field of color right here. We have a nice field of color right here. And he does very often break up his fields of color with lines just like this, where you can see the background. So we have, let me see what else. Clear my drawings, there we go. Oops, I'm drawing again because I haven't exited out. There we go. For, the list of the names, we probably want to make sure that we use a little bit of contrast and enlarge these. The website information, totally logical to have that down here because it's kind of an afterthought. So we want people to know, hey, by the way, we're featuring work by these artists. Maybe we want to put them inside the hand, or maybe we drop the hand down and put the name of the artists up top, or maybe we even flip the hand around and have them pointing down at a list. I'm not sure. Whatever you know strikes the fancy of the student, the artist here. But up top here, we have this text is very nicely centered within this block of color up here. And as is the Discovering Design in America, I feel like there's something maybe missing a little bit here, but we could probably put a little bit of imagery or something in that. The colors are great because he does do a lot where the background is either a red or an orange or a yellow, and then he uses a black silhouette of some sort. Something to keep in mind, and this is not necessarily a criticism of this particular student or any other students, this is just something for you guys to remember going forward. Black is a pain in the neck when it comes to design, both in print and in screen. You can have something that is 100% black, but if it's set for RGB, and then you accidentally choose another 100% black and it's CMYK, it can show up differently, just like we have here. I have had that problem. I can't tell you how many times. So just something to make sure you keep in mind when you're designing. When you use the color black, try to make sure you use the same swatch, just to keep things consistent, unless you're actually looking for a different look. But sometimes it can actually be very unpredictable when it either outputs on screen or when it outputs from the printer, because the printer will actually print in different densities. So just, like I said, just something to kind of keep in mind. And like I said, we are a couple minutes over, so I am going to actually, no, I don't want to do that. Oh, goodness, I'm sorry. I'm like trying to go to my desktop over here. There we go. Goodness gracious. Open file. I have something that just came through. There we go. Okay. And Devin, did you want me to critique that? Is that why you actually sent that through? Because I can absolutely do that if you would like me to. Okay, perfect. Before I do that then, I'm going to just go over this real quick, and then I'll continue recording, and I can go over that as well. Okay, so just for a reminder for those that are simply watching this, quick review of everything that we've got going on right now. We did assignment number 1 was the design period flashcards. Okay, so this is actually just a reminder for the things that we have done, things that maybe might be missing if you haven't submitted them. These are the assignments and everything that we have going on. We have assignment number 1 was the quiz. Contact me if you can't get in there, and I can most likely open it up. I've actually never had anybody ask me to open up the quiz before, but if you need it, let me know. Assignment number 2 is the advertising makeover, where you took the design period from one of the sets of flashcards and you made that poster for Sky Studios. Assessment number 2 was the self-evaluation and the critique of the advertising makeover. Assignment number 3 is your mood board and your poster draft, which we were just discussing a few minutes ago. And that is the assignment that you will be revising for this week's assessment. Last week's assessment was the social media ads, the 3 ads for the grocery delivery service, the travel agency, and the fitness club. And whoops, there we go. And then assignment number 4, like I mentioned, we have our Behance portfolio, and the assessment is our revised poster. So tomorrow is our next session, hopefully doing 1 or 2 more critiques, and we will do that demo on Behance. And then Thursday is the last chance for critiques, help and ideas if you need some springboards, and last chance for any advising. And that is that. So I'll go over Devin's real quick right now. We have this very kind of postmodern kind of look to it. So we have Devin, let me guess, because I have not taken a look at your assignment yet. Was this Greenman that you were working with? Just so I can make sure that I'm critiquing with the right artist. Perfect, awesome. Okay, so April Greenman, I mean, first of all, I love these colors. I love the fonts that you picked. We do have quite a bit of repetition, which is great. That's going to, especially since this is a very busy kind of style, it can be very difficult to try to bring all that together. And I think you've done a very, very nice job. And yet it is very funny, Amber, what people can extract from different styles. And actually, even this particular mod, I've had a lot of people grab images from different artists, both from like the very first assignment and from this particular assignment, that were not typical. And then when I researched them, I said, yeah, okay, that person actually did quite a bit like that. So this particular one, Greenman was kind of postmodern, you know, obviously a lot of layering, a lot of collage kind of stuff. Like I mentioned, we do have quite a bit of repetition in here, which is really, really great. Like I said, we have Discovering Design in America, kind of like the old, you know, label makers where it gets punched into the stickers. And then we obviously, you know what, let me actually bring up my annotate. Let me see, let me pick a color that you'll actually stand out here. We'll go with red, I guess. So in addition to having the label maker kind of thing up here, it also is all the way down here. So it draws your eye all the way down there, which is great. You've also done that right here and right here. So then one more time here and here. So by the placement that you have put the text in here, or the typeface, you've done a really nice job of being able to move the reader's eye. So very, very nice job there. Let me get rid of all this crap now so you can actually see again. This very nicely centered. You have these angled down in a manner that, because it's reading left to right, your eyes, that's a very logical way to do it, because you know you read Discovering Design in America and then it stops here, but your automatic thought process is to go to the next line all the way to the left, and that's where you start reading this one as well. So that's awesome. We have trying to think what else. And actually I love the different shapes that you've got back here. Did you compile a lot of these? Was this a background you found? Were these brushes that you made? Was this a combination of those different things? And yes, Amber, I think that the busyness, it totally works here too. And trying to purposely make something look random, it is very, very difficult. I have a hard time with that too. There's a lot going on here, and like Devin mentions, for those that aren't looking at the chat here, 15 layers, like that's a ton, but it works amazingly. I probably would have gone a couple of layers in and thought that I needed to stop, because I probably would have done too much. You've done a really nice job of kind of finding a balance where there's a lot of contrast. You know, this triangle right here is big enough that even though these, what am I doing? Sorry, I just accidentally clicked on that. This triangle is big enough that even though you have text going over several colors, you have it going over the blue, the green, the yellow, more blue, more green. It's not, there's a big enough field of color that you can actually read it. And then in this area out here, and then this area out here, the contrast between the green and the blue, it's not so stark to make it difficult to read either. So it's almost like this field of color is kind of the same. And I don't know if I'm explaining myself well enough. But the readability is great. Trying to look, I'm trying to decide if I think this maybe needs a little bit more contrast or not. I can't decide, which means it probably is not, probably is perfect in that style. Actually, I'm wondering though if, let me get out of here. Oh, there we go. Is this word right here, care, is that there on purpose? Oh, you know what? Yeah, it looks like it is, isn't it? Because I see a little shadow back there. So I'm wondering if that was a free font that they were being tricky. I hate it when fonts do that. But I mean, use your technique of having 3 different fonts. Well, there you go. Oh, so that was it. You put that on there? Okay. Yeah, the 3 different fonts, 2 to 3 fonts, I find works well. Or even if you use 1 font, but you use maybe 2 to 3 different styles. You know, whether you're using bold or italic or whatever. I find that it's a good formula. So I'm glad that you found that worked here. You have it, the website down here, you have it in a nice block of color so that you can very easily read this information. You've highlighted the website in a very subtle way, but it stands out by using just the all caps. I mean, overall, I think you've done a fabulous job there, Devin. So, very well done. I'm going to have a hard time coming up with suggestions for you. So, but very, very, very well done. So, I think, did you have any other questions, or did Amber or Heather, did you guys have any questions or any other comments that you wanted to make either on this or for anything else for today's session? Because I know that I didn't really ask a ton today. Like I usually do. You're really curious how we uploaded the file? You know what? I wasn't even sure either. For those of you watching, he actually put it in the chat here. So I've actually never done that myself. I've seen other people do it, and I obviously was able to upload it or download it, excuse me. But you know what? Actually, it looks like I just dropped it into the chat there, Heather. Because I just had something on my desktop, and that's all I did was I just took it and dropped it right into the chat. There we go. So there we go. We learned something else there, non-design related. But but I'm glad I was able to see that before the end of the session. Anyone else have any questions or any comments for me or for anyone else tonight? Want to make sure that I cover everyone. All right, we got a note from Heather. Amber has either a question or comment. Okay.
It's not about all of this stuff, though.
All right, all right then. Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't you hang on then, and then after the session, you and I can talk.
Okay.
All right. And we got Devin, Amber, Heather. I keep forgetting that was just the three of you guys today. Well, all right. For those of you watching, then thank you so much for tuning in, and for those of you guys coming in today, thank you for coming in, and look forward to doing the demonstration tomorrow. All right. So I hope you guys have a great night.
Over here.